chaos had erupted in a Trump case. Which case is this? This is back to Mar-a-Lago documents.
If you remember, we told you that the trial date was indefinitely on hold in this case, meaning that the judge had removed her order for a May 20th start date and did not reschedule it, meaning that there's no time in the future that this is scheduled to start. And she then said it was because of a myriad of pretrial issues that they had to work through. Well, that's what they're starting to do. This is the first time that they've been back in her courtroom.
They still have these pretrial, even though she's like, this can't happen, the pretrial situations, those
there
still
are
occur.
motions that are filed by both sides. There are things they have to work out before they can even get to a place where this can go to trial. And so this was the first of many of these hearings that will be taking place at least through the end of July. And that won't even exhaust all of the pretrial issues they have to get to before this could effectively be taken to trial. So they're still arguing over a lot of things, over sealed documents. You saw earlier in the week that there were some previously sealed documents that the judge unsealed,
right, we know
one of which was a search warrant from the FBI that authorized the use of deadly force. So there are a lot of things that are coming out of this, but one of the major things, as they were going through these myriad of pretrial motions that they were arguing over, that the judge questioned whether or not a jury will be able to understand the charges that are here.
This is from that article, again from CNN, and it says, Canon seems skeptical of these arguments while also expressing concern about a jury's ability to understand the legal nuances of the case at a future trial. Again, a trial that right now is theoretical, if you will.
Right.
The quote was, real people have to decide these issues. So again, really pushing forward to the fact of at some point, I mean, somewhat the judge is saying, beyond my pay grade, if you will, so real people have got to decide what's happening here, and I don't even know if they can fully understand it. And when we say it got heated, from all the reports I've seen, like, it was a screaming match.
That's right.
Inside this courtroom.
Some of these issues have to do with a motion that was brought forward by the defendant Nauda, which was an assistant to President Trump at Mar-a-Lago that has also been charged in this. And if you'll remember, his attorney is the one who alleged that the prosecutors were trying to pressure Nauda into cooperating by offering a favorable opinion when it comes to a judgeship for that attorney.
And this is
that was brought up.
And this, by the way, for timeline-wise, that was only back in the end of 2022.
That's right.
So, I mean, we're not talking about something that was 4 years ago. We got to kind of, I know we have to start looking at context and timeline, because where we are now, it feels like the Trump Mar-a-Lago raid was like a decade ago.
Right.
But really, we're only talking about a couple years ago. They said the heated proceedings Wednesday. I mean, this is crazy. They were yelling, this didn't happen. The story of what's happening at this meeting is a fantasy. What's happening here is there are so many issues. There's so much corruption. There is issues with how the documents were obtained, the photos that were taken, the plans that were made, the deadly force. All of these issues that keep coming up in these pretrial situations makes the case just fraught with error.
And every time something new is discovered, whether it be the filing that was just a couple weeks ago that said, yeah, we had originally told the court that the documents were preserved exactly as we found them. That wasn't accurate. Actually, some of it got mixed up, so we mishandled these documents we were accusing the president of mishandling. Yeah. Those issues keep coming up because the Jack Smith team isn't necessarily doing a great job at running this prosecution. And so yesterday, some of these issues that were coming forward was that the defendant Nauda, he was wanting to have his charges dismissed based on the grounds that he was being selectively prosecuted because he didn't cooperate with the government early on. And that's actually where his attorney Woodward brought up the fact that the prosecutor had dangled a judgeship before him.
Right.
Now, the prosecutor pushed back, yelled, screamed, slammed his fist on the table in the courtroom saying, this is a fantasy.
Fantasy. Garbage argument is what he said also. This is a garbage argument. Mr. Woodward's story of what happened at that meeting is a fantasy. They said, as banging on his hand on the lectern in front of him, it did not happen. Again, a bunch of, he said, she said at that point, and the judge is saying, yeah, we're going to probably take this to the to the people to decide.
Right. So that one, she did not rule on the bench on whether or not to throw his charges out. Yeah. That doesn't mean that she couldn't. She didn't rule anything on it at that point. That she'll rule later at whether or not to grant his dismissal of the charges. But also, it did start to get back and forth with the prosecutor and the defense attorney of saying, "Well, you didn't record the meeting we had," and then the defense counsel saying, "I'll go under oath on the stand to testify to it." So it's getting heated, it's chaotic, and that's not even the end-all be-all of the issues that they had yesterday.
Like you said, this could take not only this one, but this will take at least through the mid to late summer.
That's right. And then there was another issue, and this is where the judge was concerned about the jury's ability to understand it.
Yeah.
And this is where some of the charges that were filed, and these were all the defendants brought this claim in asking for the charges to be thrown out, where some of the charges read exactly the same or were worded almost precisely the same. So it got confusing whether or not it was the same charge or if it were different counts of the charge. And the prosecution's explanation was, "Don't worry, we'll explain it all to the jury when it gets to them." And the judge was then saying, now she didn't say, "I'm going to throw the case out on these grounds," but she said still have to make a ruling, but did say she was concerned about the jury's ability to understand the legal nuances in the case at a future trial. Yeah. And the quote from CNN says, "Real people have to decide these issues." I also think that was a little bit of shade towards the prosecutor and the defense of saying, "You're not acting like real people right now."
Yeah. No one goes into court. I mean, yes, courts get very heated. And look, maybe this is what we need. Maybe that's what we need in America. Maybe we need to go a bit back to the olden days. We need to go back to the parliamentary hearings of the United Kingdom where you just scream and yell, chaos breaks out, people clap, people boo, people cheer. You know, there was a while there where that kind of went away in America. I'm not so sure we don't need a little bit of it. Like it's kind of like what goes on currently in the Capitol.
Right.
Like, I don't care for a lot of it, but a little bit of it, you are speaking for, you are representing someone in this situation, or you are representing your people. And if sometimes you got to kick it up a notch, okay. But in this instance, the judge is even saying, real people have to decide these, not you screaming, this is a fantasy. Cases like when you've been in the courtroom, is this common that you get into these kind of screaming matches? Is it fun?
No, it's not fun. And I'm going to get my mom's quote completely wrong, but she's like, when you don't have the facts, you pound on the desk. If you don't have the law, you scream. And if you don't have the facts and law, you scream and pound on the desk. And so I think maybe we're seeing a little bit of that in action of you just get frustrated and it's just emotions rise.
Everyone's got a temper.
I have seen screaming in the courtroom.
So as a matter of the status of where this stands, the case will be going through all these pretrial motions, but the trial date is indefinitely postponed. And if it continues to go like this, I'm not sure that many of these issues will ever get resolved, which really draws a big question mark if this case will ever make it to trial.